You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and that charm, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag
For what?
with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club,
Why?
buy some bottles, impress them girls.
what?
It's more than life.
Oh, fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast and Food Act. And I'm Ethan, and we got a lot of different subjects on the list today to go through. Nothing too serious, nothing too crazy going on in this dead period. You know, the typical rookie draft class getting signed. One of your best players maybe wanting his final extension, and some of the interesting decisions the NFL has decided to make when it comes to streaming services. But anyways, we'll get right into some. We'll start off with some of those topics right now. So can I get a menu? And the first one is just the typical, fall in line. Saints rookies, they're signing their rookie draft class. Almost got it all signed, but on Tuesday they added two more to some of the players that had already signed, and that was Brian Breeses, and the first round defensive tackle Brian Breeses, and the fourth round quarterback Jack Hayner. Both signed 4-year contracts, and I'm sure there's a 5th-year extension option with the Brian Breeses because he's a first round pick. And then the other players that had already signed, I think Kendra Miller was the first one to sign, and that was the rookie running back. And then you had 4th round offensive lineman Nick Salvadori, safety, 5th round safety Jordan Howden, and 6th round rookie wide receiver A.T. Perry. And just mentioning the one player that hadn't signed yet, that just left a 2nd round defensive end Isaiah Folsky to be unsigned, which he's not signed yet, but I don't predict that to be an issue or anything like that. It's usually always kind of comes down to how the money and stuff is structured, like guarantees and things like that. Even though it's not a big deal anymore, now that there's a rookie pay scale, pay wage scale, so that most of these players, depending on where they're slotted, all get paid the same. But for him being such a high profile, playing such a high profile position and being a high round draft pick, I'm sure he wants that security. So I understand that, and it seems like it'll probably be something similar to Alontae Taylor last year. He did the same thing last season, where it took a while before he was the final rookie signed a deal, and he was a 2nd round pick last year as well. So nothing, kind of just a wash, rinse and repeat with the whole rookie draft class. But it's good to see it falling in line and there not being more of a story behind it for some other reason. So that's good to see. And then they just continue to want to add to the defensive line, which I'm all for that. But I couldn't tell you what my thoughts are on these players. They just signed, this was on Tuesday as well, they signed defensive end Nico Laelos and defensive lineman Jack Hefline. Both were just the tryouts at the rookie minicamp. And Laos had spent time before with the Saints, but then both of these players played for the XFL. Laos played for Seattle Sea Dragons, and Hefline played for the XFL, the Houston Roughnecks. And it's funny because I followed a little bit of the XFL. You know, their championship, XFL's championship was last Saturday, and that was between the DC Defenders and the Arlington Renegades, I think. And yeah, I was just pulling for the DC Defenders because Greg Williams is their defensive coordinator, and I'm not a huge fan of the Arlington Renegades head coach Todd Haley. He's always kind of been similar to Sean Payton during that kind of stretch. He was always like Mr. 7-9, 8-8. So he's always shown that he's got some kind of interesting passion to get upset on the sidelines and stuff. I think when he was like I'm trying to think if he was the defensive or the offensive coordinator. I think he was the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers when he last was in the NFL. But anyways, I was definitely pulling for the Saints ex Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. But sadly, they did not get the win, even though they had been dominant all year. I think they had like a 10-1 record going into that game, and I think the Renegades, they were coming into that game with the championship game with like a sub 500 record of like 5-6. But these two particular defensive linemen, Nico Los and Jack Hefline, I don't recall them being like overly dominant or considered like the best defense lineman in the XFL, but I am familiar with the XFL, the Seattle Sea Dragons and the Houston Roughnecks. But the only other thing to mention about this is they're talking about rookie minicamp there a little bit. Everyone participated at the rookie minicamp besides Kendre Miller. He was kind of out working off to the sidelines, not participating in any reps or anything like that. So that's a little interesting note kind of thing to keep an eye on. That's always a stressful thing to me, is like right after you draft someone, they're already dealing with injuries, or right after you sign someone, unrestricted free agent to a big contract, then they're already dealing with injuries. The one that first comes to mind when situations like this come up, not comparing Kendre Miller to this player at all, or really the situation that much, but the classic one was when the Saints signed Jerry's Bird in 2014 to like the highest paid safety free contract, and then right after he signs it, he has a back surgery. So not that I'm getting too worried about this, but it's something to keep an eye on. This is the running back, Kendre Miller, that you drafted in the 3rd round, that you're expecting to take a lot of reps from either just trying to get less carries on Alvin Kamara, or if he's missing due to suspension for his battery charges. So you drafted this guy for a reason. So Saints, they're close to getting all their rookies signed. Rookie draft picks signed, and they're still looking to improve the team, any nook and cranny they can find. All right, on to an interesting signing that happened around the same time. Trying to think if that was on Monday or Tuesday as well. I want to say that may have been on Monday. The Saints have signed James Washington, and that's a wide receiver. He was originally like a 2nd round pick, I think, of the he was a 2nd round pick in 2018 of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I actually had to go back on his profile and stuff to figure out which player he was, because I had him kind of confused with Deontay Johnson, who's the other like similar size wide receiver, 5'11", 200 pounds or so. And I had these guys mixed up because I had known that James Washington had some like decent seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I wasn't sure if Deontay Johnson and him were the same person. I had them mixed up in my head. And Deontay Johnson, he actually had like, I want to say like 1,100 yards receiving or something like that with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kenny Pickett last year. But in just the 4-year run with the Steelers, he wasn't terrible. It was really just last year with the Cowboys when he had a foot injury and just really didn't play at all that kind of shut down his growth potential. But his 4 years with Pittsburgh, he had 218 targets, 114 catches for 1,629 yards with a 14.3 average and 11 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty good. And had the one, highlighted good season where he got the majority of those yards. That was in 2019. It's hard to believe that that's already going to be 4 seasons away. He had in that season he had 80 targets for 44 catches for 735 yards, with 16.7 average and 3 touchdowns. Very similar, looking very Ted Ginn-ish with the per reception average and the amount of catches. But the Saints need as many weapons as they can get. It seems the last couple of years, right when you think, oh, they have a stacked roster and they got the best offensive roster or receiving core or running back core in the league. Next thing you know, one starter gets hurt and all that's dissipated. So anything they can do to add more targets and make it more comfortable and easier for Derek Carr, I'm all for it. This is a player, if he could get healthy, he could maybe get back to maybe being, I'm not going to say 1,000-yard receiver because he never was that, but maybe 500. And any little bit helps. The weird thing I found here on him was on Pro Football Reference. I didn't see that he was a punt returner or a kick returner, which was a little surprising. But anyways, I'm for the James Washington signing. All right, and now on to talking about some ex or current players. Greatest Saints of all times players, possibly wanting to get that final contract. And who I'm talking about here is I'm talking about Cameron Jordan. He's talking about possible discussions for a new contract. He'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year coming up. And I imagine because of that, I'm sure he's got a high cap number that I think it flows through the 2024 season. Let's see where that flows through. I think he has like dead cap or something like that flows through like even the 2026 season or 2027 season. So it's through the 2027 season, whether he's on the roster or not. So if you were to sign him and it says like that he's looking to be interested in a 2-year extension, the way you could sign that and spread the money out, that could maybe take some of the cap hit down, bring his cap hit down, and maybe alleviate some of that dead cap. But you're gonna be paying him through 2027 regardless. So I don't see why you don't give him the extension he's looking for. I want to say that I don't really like paying players like this, players that are in their mid-30s. I think Cam Jordan's 34 years old, but even with that, he was still their best defensive lineman last year. With that had 8.5 sacks last year, 13 tackles for loss, 17 pressures in 2022. So even with him being your oldest player, your veteran player, he's still one of your best. Part of me wants to argue with this, but pretty much every other player on the defensive line besides Carl Granderson, who he only had like 5 sacks last year, is kind of an unknown. So you might as well sign it. And he said he wants to end his career in New Orleans. So hopefully once they get this deal done, that'll be able to meet his wish, his dream of being a Saint for the rest of his career. So hopefully that comes to fruition. But so that's one thing to look an eye out. Some players, some older vets, team leaders looking to get paid. And then talking about getting paid, we're talking about getting paid here. We're talking about corporations and businessmen when we're talking about this one here. This is the subject that I'm not overly happy to be talking about right now, and that's a Peacock. Peacock is signing a $110 million deal to stream a wild card playoff game, and then I think also, let's see, they also are getting a regular season game exclusively as well on December 23rd. That's a prime time game. So I already disliked this when it was Amazon Prime last year, taking up all the Thursday night football games, and I think I watched probably the majority of those games. And really, with it being transitioned to Amazon Prime, I think this has kind of been a normal thing for a while, that you put like the worst matchups of the week sometimes on Thursday night football. So like for other people that didn't watch the Thursday night football because they didn't want to pay for the streaming service or anything like that, I really don't think you missed too much, because out of all Thursday night football, there was maybe only like one or two good games. So is that worth paying? What is it, like $20 every month for a streaming service? But it's not like if you get Amazon Prime, you also get these Peacock games. It's a whole nother streaming service that you have to get. And man, that's a rough going there, that it's actually a playoff game. It would be the first playoff game. I guess would be aired January 13th, I think. That would be just a wild card playoff game. So I'm imagining it's going to be like the 7th seeded teams going against the 2 seed or something like that. Definitely the games that aren't exciting, but that it's actually a playoff game is what kind of takes us over the edge, because now for certain fans of certain teams, depending on who's, my guess is the 7th or the 2nd seed next season, that if they don't have this certain streaming service, that they won't be able to see this game. They won't be able to watch it because it won't be on live, local, just normal cable. So if they already have HBO or Apple or something like that, then they're gonna, if they want to see these games, they're gonna have to get Amazon. They're gonna have to get Peacock all on top of that. Man, that just gets overwhelming after a while. I already have the hard enough time keeping up with usernames and pass codes. So I'm not all about this moving towards a different type of style, streaming style of entertainment. I'm more old school. I like just turning on whatever channels you can pick up with your antenna and watching them on live, local, primetime television without the streaming word attached. No primetime stream, no streaming attached to the title there. But anyways, other than that, having me a little frustrated. Everything else seems to be going pretty smoothly with the Saints. But other than that, like I'm saying, I think that's all I have for you. So, who dat? Can I get a check, please?